considering that the Yellowstone River flows through quite a few miles of nothing but sandstones and shales between where it leaves the mountains and makes its way down to Billings and into eastern Montana, you would figure the river would be mostly sandstone. But there's actually very little. And we talked about this in the first video about the mechanical weathering and chemical weathering. Sandstones and shales and similar rocks do not endure those. So we have only the hardest. And keep in mind, when we talk about geology and different kinds of rocks, they kind of grade into each other. It's not like it's black and white. For example, sandstone is obviously the most recent. And then you have quartzite, which would be metamorphosed under great pressure, completely changed, etc. And everything in between. So some of these could be meta sandstones, which are somewhat compressed and hardened, and some of them can also be originating from volcanic ash, which basically is sand. So forgive me if I mislabel something, but I want to talk about some of the sandstones. For the sake of this video, we'll call them sandstones that we have in the Yellowstone, because they're really pretty and they make unique finds. Here's a beautiful piece here showing some fault lines and some beautiful iron staining. These I like to call bee rocks. They have nothing to do with bees, but I remember my one son found this when he was little, and ever since then we called it the bee rock. And then more recently we found another one. And these, I'm almost wondering if they're a volcanic tuff, because the grain is a little different, but the very even patterning of the water stains or iron staining is very unique in these. So for lack of a better term, let's call them bee rocks. I'd be interested to know if any of you guys have some bee rocks. Maybe you could send me some photos or something, because I have 2 of them. So that means, you know, it's like the Bible says, let every word be established by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. So once there are 2 witnesses, then we know there's a lot of it somewhere. That's kind of my theory on rock hounding. There's a lot of rocks you only find 1 of, and you just kind of don't know. But once you find 2 of them, then you know there's a significant source upstream somewhere. These are very common also. This sandstone is probably the same as this, as I can tell looking at the graining and things like that. They're the same exact material, just a different pattern. And of course, sandstone, like any other rock, can be fractured and have mineral veins. In this case, these mineral veins are probably calcite, but they make a unique stone. Now this variety here I want to show you, because if we could find the source, again, 2 or 3 witnesses. I have a bunch of these. It's just a sandstone with hematite veining. You can see the hematite actually hardens the material. And we know this because the veins stick out. They protrude from the rock, which means the lighter colored material is softer and is eroding in comparison to the hematite. And I have this sawn piece here, piece of slab. This is from Pakistan. This is not from the Yellowstone, but it's an extremely expensive slab. I think it was like $8,000 a slab or something. We got this years ago. I just have a couple little pieces of it. But just to compare, it's the same exact material. If we can go upstream somewhere and find the source of this, it would be fascinating. Some rocks we're able to find the sources where they're likely still coming from, and others we're not. I'd love to know where this comes from. If any of you know, I would appreciate some photographs, as much information as you're willing to give. I know we're kind of secretive about our locations, but just kind of a general area. It would be interesting to know. Here's a bigger piece from the Yellowstone. All these cobbles, by the way, are from the Yellowstone. The only one that's not is that slab. But here's one that I cut and polished. Beautiful material. Right from our own backyard. These sandstones here, again, they're probably related to these over here because they seem to have the same exact grain, just different color patterns. Basically iron rich and not iron rich. And from what I've researched, there's a sandstone quarried in the Midwest called the Jacobsville sandstone that is very similar to this. And I was recently in Germany and visited the Heidelberg Castle. And most of the stonework in the city of Heidelberg as well is built from a beautiful sandstone, very similar to this. Again, very similar to the Jacobsville sandstone quarried in the United States. And we have a lot of it in the Yellowstone. And I'll walk over there real quick. I want to show you my rock display from the Musselshell River, which is the next river up north of Billings. I'm going the wrong way. Okay, so here are my rocks from the Musselshell River. And you can see there's even more of that sandstone in the Musselshell. There's a couple pieces. Here's a big piece here with that beautiful iron staining. It's one thing when you find the sandstone that's completely red, but it's really attractive when you find it with the alternating bands of different colors. And we know the grains weren't necessarily so different. It's probably staining that came later. But again, these are from the Musselshell. Okay, you might be wondering, you might have seen glimpses of this a few minutes ago, and as I was talking about the other sandstones. This is a fascinating piece. It's got 2 layers. This is actually decorative concrete. And I have it in my collection because it's interesting in the sense that it has regular cement on the back. And then they put this decorative gravel, maybe in a grout or even just in the concrete. It's obviously hard enough. It's withstood the river. But I like this because it tells the story of how, you know, we often think we are separate from nature, maybe even above nature. And the river does not care. Whatever bits and pieces of our civilization fall into the river, they're going to start getting rounded, broken down, buried in conglomerates somewhere. Who knows, maybe in the distant future, people would dig this up and wonder, how did this form? That's an interesting piece. I mentioned quartzite. You guys know about glaciers, okay? When a glacier forms, you can imagine the upper layers, they're just snow. And then as they get compressed, the air gets pressed out, and the snowflakes get closer and closer together until finally you have transparent ice. Well, this is a beautiful quartzite from the Yellowstone. Again, I don't know where its source might be. I'd love to know though, because this is an extremely hard rock. I remember when I was sawing through it, the blade, when you saw through quartz, it often looks like lightning inside the stone. It's very, very cool. But look on the edges how transparent this is. Let's see if I can get that. There we go. Now it's focusing. This is just pure quartz, and yet it conserves beautifully the original bedding. Beautiful cross bedding and other patterns there. And this is really, I don't have very much quartzite from the Yellowstone, probably because on the outside, honestly, it doesn't look like much. And so we would probably walk over these and never pick them up. But if you pay attention and you catch those little, just a little hint of that bedding, you know you got a gemstone. I mean, it's a beautiful rock inside, but they're really hard to see from outside. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video about the sandstones found in the Yellowstone River. This is my largest piece, polished all the way around. All 3 of my kids, when they were growing up, they went through the phase where they were like 2 years old maybe, or 3, and pushing this around on the carpet. So it has a lot of history with us. Beautiful piece, weighs, I don't know, maybe 50 pounds or so. Anyway, God bless you guys as always. Thanks for taking interest in this series. I hope to cover a lot of Yellowstone rocks that would be of interest. Of course, the agates, petrified wood, but so many others. And we'll see you on the next one.